All right, folks, welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 78. Got a variety of stuff here tonight, and we're going to jump right into it as soon as I can share the screen here. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. And you all should be seeing the title slide at this point.
We are.
I don't know if it is. I don't see Peyton. Oh, there he is. Okay, right in front of me.
He's there. Yeah. Once again, during the program, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to unmute yourself, ask the comment or question. We're going to start off, as it turns out, with something topical. I went over to Newark, Delaware earlier this month. To watch some trains, and finally, officially, the oldest sellers are actually on short time now. Tomorrow begins the first revenue runs of the newest sellers. So within 2 years now, these old ones should be gone. I plan to be out tomorrow to shoot the first revenue run of one of the newest sellers. But here we have a northbound seller at Newark, Delaware, southbound regional train with behind the ACS 64. Reason I was over there was to get Dandelion, the yellow Crayola unit. Amtrak has two of these in service. One Dandelion, one is violet blue. And I guess they're still around. I haven't kept up with them recently, but I guess they're still both wrapped and still running.
Yeah, Betty keeps photographing them.
Okay. And then another interesting locomotive. NJ Transit's Conrail Heritage unit came over and ran on former Conrail trackage here in South Jersey. So the must-get shot in South Jersey is Winslow Junction Tower over near Hamilton. So I had to get that. The unit has since been returned to North Jersey. Last I saw, it was running on the Port Jervis line. Now, good news is, if you believe all the rumors, and they're probably true, the next heritage unit out of the NJT shop is going to be for the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore lines. We're finally going to get a PRSL heritage unit, and they better assign it to Atlantic City when it comes out. I had forgotten that within a couple of miles of Winslow Junction, there is a muffler man. I went to Winslow a different way than I usually go, drove right by him. It's one of the, officially they're called Happy Halfwit muffler men. Some say they're Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine, but they're actually Happy Halfwits. But they got the standard muffler man hands to hold a muffler. This guy here is at Mr. Bill's. Mr. Bill's, since I last saw this guy in 2000 or 2020 rather, Mr. Bill's has become a Richmond's ice cream seller. So this muffler man is now adorned in a Richmond's ice cream uniform.
And of course, you stop to have some ice cream.
Of course. You have to. And then most recently, I was out on the River Line, the diesel-powered light rail line that serves South Jersey between Camden and Trenton. Here we see a train crossing over Rancocas Creek in Delanco, New Jersey. And a southbound train also at Delanco. Northbound train pulling out with a southbound train in the station. Meets at Delanco are pretty common because a lot of the railroad is single track, but through Delanco it's double track, so a lot of the meets are staged there. My big target, I was hoping it was out and running, and it was to get this car wrapped in a safety message: stay alert, stay off the tracks. So I got it at Delanco running north. Then when the light got a little bit bad, I moved over to Beverly and got it on its return trip about an hour and a half later. went to Trenton, turned around, was coming back. This is at Beverly coming back south. And then a regular train stopping at the Beverly station. You can see this is a single track here. Delanco is the next station south, and double track begins about a half mile below where I'm shooting here. And then the safety train went down into Camden, came back out again, and I got it once more at Beverly. But of course, now the light's getting bad. It's pretty overhead lit at this point.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thanks. Most of this program is going to be devoted to a big trip I took out to Marion, Ohio for Summerail, the big slideshow out there. The first day of the trip, I devoted mostly to Americana. I basically followed old US 30, the Lincoln Highway out across Pennsylvania, and almost everything I shot was within a mile or two of US 30. Started off in York at the Haynes Shoe House. Built originally as a shoe store. It is now a bed and breakfast. You can't get on the property unless you are staying there. This is taken from just outside the fence. Not a bed and breakfast. It's actually a rental. Then from York, I bypassed Gettysburg because going through Gettysburg is a nightmare. You have to want to go to Gettysburg to take 30 through Gettysburg. Went around Gettysburg. My next stop was at the Everett Railroad in Everett, Pennsylvania. This is not the Everett Railroad that now runs out of Hollidaysburg, but it's the same railroad. They're in a different location. The Everett Railroad that runs today no longer serves the town of Everett. But years ago, back in the 1960s, I actually rode behind that locomotive number 11. Now, to confuse matters even more, both Everett railroads run steam, and both have locomotives numbered 11. The current number 11 at the Everett and Hollidaysburg is a 260. This is a 262. But I actually rode behind this engine back when I was like 12 years old. I hadn't been back to Everett ever since. This locomotive is a bit unusual in that its Baldwin builder's number is 33333. I'm not sure why the builder's plate is warped out like that, but both builder's plates were the same way on both sides of the locomotive. Now, I'm positive they're reproduction builder's plates. I doubt the originals even exist. And the freight house is still there too. Interestingly, judging by the bay window and from the way I remember as a kid, the locomotive is currently sitting on the non-railroad side of the station, and the railroad was actually on this side of the station where the bay window is here. The locomotive is ex-Huntington and Broadtop Mountain, and they have a caboose there as well, lettered for that railroad. Next stop was Bedford, Pennsylvania, for the coffee pot, which obviously sold coffee at one point. Although if you look at old photos of it, it also sold beer and wine at one point. There's actually a handle on it too. You had to get around to the shady side of the pot to see the handle. And then also near Bedford, the Pied Piper of Bedford. This guy stands at the entrance to what was a storybook land at one time. Storybook land itself is completely gone. The only thing left is the Pied Piper at the old gate.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thank you.
Somebody's keeping it up nicely then, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Then over in Derry, for some reason, Derry, Pennsylvania has had a lot of Bigfoot sightings. So they got a statue dedicated to Bigfoot there. And then over in Latrobe. Latrobe is famous for four things. I guess five things, actually. Arnold Palmer, Fred Rogers, Rolling Rock Beer, the first ever pro football team from the late 1800s, and the first banana split was made in Latrobe. And they have a sign there that explains that in 1904, the first banana split was actually made there. From there, I wandered over to the Pittsburgh area and found the Westinghouse Atom Smasher. Back in the 1930s, when Westinghouse was trying to harness nuclear power for consumer uses, they were doing a lot of experiments using the atom smasher, which of course stood upright back then like a giant light bulb. And there's a sign there that explains a little bit about it. Built in 1937. The property the atom smasher sits on was purchased by a developer many years ago. And the atom smasher became unstable, so the developer actually had it gently removed and lowered to the ground. The rest of the buildings on the property were all demolished. The developer recognizes the historic significance of the atom smasher. He's not going to scrap it or anything. He's still trying to figure out what he's going to do with the property and with the atom smasher ultimately. And then as it got towards the evening, I went to one of my favorite perches, and that's at the top of the Duquesne Incline in Pittsburgh. Looking from the Duquesne Incline, here we see a Norfolk Southern Freight crossing over the Ohio River. A little bit of forest fire haze in the sky that night. But from the top of the incline, you look down and see the Golden Triangle down below you. And here you have a CSX freight running on the, I guess both the Baltimore and Ohio and the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie went through here at the bottom of the hill. And looking up that's the Allegheny, I think. The Allegheny and the Monongahela, that's the Allegheny. Allegheny and Monongahela meet here to form the Ohio River. And after dark, the incline going up the hill, the bright lights in the background there, that's from PNC Park. The Pirates were in town. Next morning, I started off transitioning from Americana to railroads, but my first stop was still Americana. Mars, Pennsylvania. Obviously, Mars needs a flying saucer in the middle of town. There was also a ship, the USS Mars, that was named for the town. And that ship's bell is now in the same park as the flying saucer. And there's a plaque there that explains a little bit about the USS Mars. Commissioned in 63, decommissioned in 93. Served in the Vietnam War. So that's beautiful downtown Mars, Pennsylvania. What I didn't know until I was leaving town was that Mars also has a railroad museum. Here's a trolley station in front of a very small set of railroad tracks. They run a small train you can ride on, a little park train you can ride on. They got the trolley station here, but they also have the Baltimore and Ohio station's been restored. And this little Plymouth is on display there, along with a rocket ship, keeping with the Mars theme. Next stop was in Portersville, Pennsylvania, for the Snowman. The Snowman is a water ice stand shaped like a snowman. I was there too early in the morning to partake of a water ice. From there, I went over to Newcastle, poking around. There was an engine parked at the south end of the railroad, where they don't usually park engines. Um, but I parked my car, walked in, got a photo of it, uh, walked back out again, and there's a tower, UN tower, it's been restored and sitting right there as well. And while I was there, a truck pulled up and got talking to the guy. He was telling about the railroads that serve there and telling me about some improvements that the Newcastle Industrial was making to the railroad and all kind of stuff. He goes, yeah. He says, do you shoot locomotives too? I said, yeah. He goes, did you go up and shoot that one up there? I said, yeah, I did. And I didn't know if I got myself in trouble saying that or not. But he goes, okay, good. He said, we talked a little more. He says, let me give you my card so you know who you're talking to. He gives me his card. I was talking to the owner of the railroad, as it turns out. From there, heading towards Marion, I stopped in Bucyrus, Ohio. Real nice station there. Got a couple of Norfolk Southern freights going by. And then up to Marion, where Summerail is held. This is on Friday afternoon. Big crowd gathers there to watch trains. This is a northbound Norfolk Southern train taken from the steps of restored AC Tower at the Marion Union Station. There's the station on the far right, the restored AC Tower in the center of the photo. The tower at one time sat off the left side of the picture across the tracks and was actually another story taller. It had another set of scaffolding underneath the tower building itself. Busy place. Three different railroads cross here on diamonds. It gets noisy when trains come by. Here we see a westbound CSX train on the former Erie. And CSX has a yard there. Next morning was Summerail Day, but word got out that the Lackawanna Heritage Unit was just sitting just north of the tower in Marion. So a bunch of us, went over there and photographed that before going over to the theater for Summerail. And then it was time for Summerail. Here we are at the Palace Theater. There's all of our presenters ready to go. And the show ran from, the Railroadiana show started at 10 a.m. Slides started at 1. Everything wrapped up at about 9. Then it was back over to the station and tower. And I tried this night shot there. Train coming south on Norfolk Southern. Next morning, got up with me and Otto headed out. Otto Vondrak, the managing editor of Railfan. Our first stop was the Marion Industrial Center. They have 2 locomotives there. The switcher here lettered for the center, and then this former Santa Fe GP30 still in Santa Fe paint. While we were there, walking around and driving around, the security guard drove by us a few times. All he did was wave. No trouble being there. Our next stop was the station in Galion, Ohio. Real nice station. We thought we'd give us some time here and see if a train showed up. Across the street is this neat brick building, the American Steel Grave Vault Company. And it didn't take too long, about 40 minutes or so, before a train showed up. Showed up going the right direction. So we got that. Our ultimate destination was over near Cleveland. We wanted to ride the light rail and heavy rail lines over there. Both lines are going to have their cars replaced supposedly next year. So we want to get some shots of the current set of cars running before they go away. A lot of the red line from downtown Cleveland out to the airport parallels Norfolk Southern's former nickel plate line. So you can actually do some rail fanning from the light rail platforms. There's the tail end of the stack train going away as one of the heavy rail cars comes in. We basically just rode and got off at each station, took a couple of shots, got back on, rode to the next station, heading for downtown Cleveland. This is the Triscuit station. They missed a big marketing tie-in here. And then as you approach downtown, you get to the big bridge that goes over the Cuyahoga River. At one time, a steam railroad, which was called heavy railroad, wasn't steam, it was electric actually, Cleveland Union Terminal, shared this bridge. Back down at 25th Street Station is just south of the River Bridge. Then we got into Tower City underneath the former Cleveland Union Terminal Tower. The line out to Shaker Heights was not running. This was on the weekend. It was not running for some reason. They used the Breda built cars. We did see this one Breda car come into Terminal Tower, even though the line was not in service. And then one of the heavy rail cars came in. We got on that and rode out. The first two stations east of Terminal Tower are used by both lines, both the light rail and the heavy rail. And thus they have two platforms, a high-level platform and a low-level platform. We wanted to see those, so we rode out there. So it turns out the second one of those stations, the farthest east of those stations, is right at the RTA shops. And because the Shaker Heights line wasn't running, a lot of the Breda cars were just sitting there in the yard. You can see the two platforms here. I'm on the high-level platform, and then it drops down to a low-level platform there, just in the distance for the light rail cars. And we headed back into Cleveland, or back to our cars, which are actually out near the airport. A few more stops along the way. The old catenary support system here with the arches. Once that was done, Otto headed somewhere, I guess back to Rochester. And I went off to East Cleveland looking for this abandoned observatory, which is kind of cool. Has two domes. It was used through into the 1950s. And then the city lights from Cleveland got too bright and rendered the observatory useless. So they moved the equipment out. The property was eventually sold in 2005, I think it was. In 2007, the new property owner, who was going to develop this as a private residence, got indicted for mortgage fraud. And the property is sat vacant ever since. It was part of the Case School of Applied Science when it was built. Unfortunately, when I got there, it was bad timing for sunlight. The sun was setting almost directly behind the observatory. And then I was staying in the area overnight, and it was still fairly early, so I decided to go down into Kent, Ohio, where Kent State University is located. The B&O station is still there, so I set up my strobes, just hoping to get a westbound CSX freight. And I lucked out and was able to light this train up as I went by through Kent. Yeah, I'm missing a chunk of slides here. The next day, I met up with Jerry Jordak, and we went to chase the Ohio Central. And we started off in near I know the town. Shoot, go by there all the time on the interstate. There's a steel mill there, and we're outside of Youngstown. And I have had a whole set of slides here of that chase, and they aren't here. I'm not sure where they got to. Trust me, we chased the train. I'll have to show those next time. We lucked out because Ohio Central has a lot of leased locomotives. Gillette, we're at Gillette. And we could have had some really awful locomotives, but we had these two maroon and yellow ones, which was really nice. So we did that chase, took a break for lunch, and then the afternoon chase was going to be the Wheeling and Lake Erie. So we set up for the Wheeling and Lake Erie in Akron. While we were waiting, the place we set up was the location of the Hotel Matthews, which is no longer there. It was once quite a place where artists like Cab Calloway would perform back in the day. There's a little monument there now to the Hotel Matthews on this intersection in Akron. Wheeling Lake Erie runs these really, really spiffy black and orange units inspired by the Rio Grande paint scheme. And the yard there was chock full of black and orange units. So we're hopeful to get a black and orange unit on our chase, but of course, it did not cooperate and wound up with this kind of grayish locomotive on the front and the orange and black engine trailing. Once again, I have more shots of this. I'm not sure why they didn't make it into the program. My software is letting me down here. Anyhow, I'll have to cover this next month. But there's more. There's still more. Next day, I headed over to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum. As it turns out, they were going to roll out their latest restoration project, the Terrible Trolley, painted for the Pittsburgh Steelers' 4 Super Bowl championships of the 1970s. They were going to roll it out on the Tuesday after Summerail. So I just added a day to the trip, went to Washington, Pennsylvania, to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, and was there for the rollout of the Terrible Trolley, making its big debut. Getting off the trolley there, that's John Banaszak. He played defensive end for 3 of the 4 Steelers championship teams. This car actually ran in this paint scheme in Pittsburgh for for many years. It was eventually painted into the standard Port Authority paint scheme. Somehow it escaped being scrapped twice. Once when it was set aside and rebuilt by the Port Authority, second time when somebody snatched it up for preservation, and then they never got around to actually restoring it, but it sat in a barn for years. When that person finally decided to dispose of the Trolley Museum picked it up. But other cars were out running that day, including this Pittsburgh PCC, this West Penn car. This is a location on the trolley route known as Yanovich. They picked up this shelter from a location called Smith from somewhere. The shelter has its Smith sign on it. It's probable that the Trolley Museum will eventually rename this location from Yanovich to Smith to match the shelter. An older Pittsburgh car out running. Okay, back to the Terrible Trolley. Here it is at the brand new Volunteer Boulevard, the new main visitor area for the museum. Thought it was kind of cool to get a football trolley going past a baseball sign. It made several trips. There's Bram Bailey. He is a volunteer for the museum wearing his Terry Bradshaw jersey. They wanted to put 300 miles on the car in test service before the debut. So Bram was one of the operators that would go out at night because they didn't want any photos leaking out of the trolley before the grand unveiling. So Bram would go out at night and run the trolley for 50 miles a night to put miles on it to make sure everything was good for the debut. And we did some night photos with it that night. Had a little bit of fun while we were doing the night photos. Can't be serious all the time.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thanks. There's Mike. I think his last name is pronounced Bukta or Bukta. Anyhow, operator at the museum. He was the head of the group that restored the Terrible Trolley. A couple of the other volunteers in their golf cart. And then lined up 3 Pittsburgh trolleys in a row here. And there's the 3 operators with the 3 trolleys. And there's Mike. And our operators who stayed up late with us and had a good time with the night photos. Next day, I had to get home. Stopped off in Johnstown. Found this really nice scene here. I need to get this sometime. Couldn't get it with a train. Thunderstorms were rolling in. I didn't have a scanner, so I couldn't sit in the car and listen for trains. I wasn't going to stand out in a thunderstorm with 6 hours of driving ahead of me still. But this is on my must-get list back in Johnstown. I did stop in Tyrone. and watched some NS action there, got out ahead of the thunderstorms. Local rail fan came up and said, hey, the Pennsylvania Railroad Heritage Unit is leading an eastbound train. It's up at Crescent right now. I said, well, I'll stick around for that. So I stuck around an extra hour and 15 minutes or so. Listened to the Altoona radio feed on my phone. Train got through Altoona in pretty good shape. Coming into Crescent, they're coming into Tyrone. What I didn't hear was they added 2 engines in Altoona. So now the Pennsy unit is running third out. So there it is. Should have been leading. But that from there, I just drove home. That wrapped up the trip. And then for finish off tonight's slideshow, we're going to go back to 2009. If you remember, if you were with me last month, I showed you some shots of one of the wettest photo charters I was ever on the Little River Railroad, where it poured rain all day on a Friday. Just poured rain as we were out with their 462 on a photo train. Now, after I do the slideshows over the course of the following month, as I'm going through my scans in Lightroom, I'll see something that says, and I'll say, hey, that'd be a good topic for the next slideshow. Then about a week later, I'll see something else and say, it's a good topic for the last slideshow, next slideshow. And then I'll see something else. Bright and shiny things distract me. So, and I forget what I was going to do. And whatever the last bright and shiny thing was that I saw is what winds up in the program. As it turns out, the last thing that caught my eye were the following 2 days after that wet photo charter. We went over to Owasso for the Steam Railroading Institute and a photo event with nickel plate 765. So we started off Saturday morning before sunrise doing night shots in Henderson, posing the caboose by the little shanty here. And then as it got closer to sunrise, went out to our sunrise field. Had some early mist, but this is just before the sun came up. We had a layer of mist and the sun didn't pop up over the horizon. It had to rise above the mist. As they were backing up for a photo run by, the sun started to poke through the mist. Here's our caboose backing up. Now we're getting some color in the sky with the sun up. And this is the third run by. Sun's up high now, and you get it behind the smoke as the train went by.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thank you. Now, I mentioned that the previous day I gotten soaked on that Little River charter. We hit a dew point where everybody who had the same camera or the same lens that I did and was out in that rain the previous day, all of a sudden had their lenses fogging up. The dew point hit just right. One of the interior elements on the lens started to fog up, and it happened on 4 or 5 cameras in the photo line all at once. The 765 is not rolling through the fog here. That's the beginnings of my lens fogging up. So the next run by had a big fog smudge on my lens. Fortunately, this was a trip that we chased by car. We didn't ride the train between locations. We went by car. So my car was there. I took the lens, took it off the camera, took it to the car, turned on the air conditioning, and tried to blow cold, dry air into the lens to dry it out. I missed about 1 or 2 run-bys, but recovered in time to get this. This charter was put on by Historic Transport Preservation. John Kraft, Mike Allen, and a few others put it together. And it was a spectacular, spectacular day. Going past Michigan Bean. And a couple of props, old car, old bus came out, posed in the shots. And we had some picnickers pose in the scene. What's really a nice touch on these charters is they don't bother washing the locomotives. So as you can see, 765 here is getting a real nice coat of road grime on it, which makes it really look appropriate for pulling a freight train.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thanks, Chris. And this is at Carland, famous elevator that's used for a lot of photo charters, the landmark along the Lake State Central Railroad, which is used by the Steam Railroading Institute out of Owasso for their trips. This shot here, I think I've showed this before. This little kid showed up in his full engineer's outfit, the overalls, the Thomas the Tank Engine hat, and everything else. Him and his mom pulled up to see what was going on the tracks here. And we asked the mom if he could borrow the kid for a shot. And she said, sure. So two of the volunteers from Steam Railroading Institute took the kid out and posed him in the shot to watch the train go by. And I was positive that that kid was going to bolt and run and hide somewhere because there's a grade crossing right behind us here. The train's going to come by pounding for the run by, whistle blowing, stuff like that. Anyhow, these two guys got out there with the kid, and the guy was pointing and saying, here comes Thomas, here comes Thomas. And the train goes by, smoke's blowing, loud banging, whistle blowing. And that kid turned and watched the engine with this big smile on his face. He really enjoyed the entire thing. And we're out until just about sunset here. Unfortunately, our first day sunset was a dud. Clouds on the horizon blocked it, so we didn't get a whole lot. Next morning, we're up again before sunrise, not much sleep. This shot here was just before sunrise as the sky was just getting bright orange. But the money shot was the second run by with the sun up. We then borrowed somebody's farmhouse. That's Elena up on the porch, working on her string beans. This shot here, I got a little bit kind of cute. There's three openings to get stuff in. I got the locomotive in the right-hand opening. I got the people waving in the middle opening, but unfortunately, Elena wound up behind a post on the left-hand side. I couldn't get all three elements to line up right. And more folks we had posing for the photos, different locations. After lunch, we switched the consist around, put the gondola up front, moved the boxcars to the back. just to be different. Why is this crowd all bunched together when there's a big farm field they'd be spread out in? Well, the reason is they were all getting the same angle, this shot here under the tree.
Excellent shot, Steve.
Back at the booth at Henderson, where we were the first thing in the morning the previous day. Now we're getting towards sunset and we're getting some orange in the sky. From the shadow side of the train, some cross lighting to get the underside of the smoke nicely textured. And then out into the field to our right for sunset. Next run by, the sun was a little bit lower, got it between the locomotive and tender. And then with the sun just going below the horizon, and that wrapped up our charter weekend and also wraps up this program. Next program is on September 24th. That is the last Wednesday in September. I hope you'll join me then. Let me close this down for the folks on YouTube and stick around. We'll take some questions and comments. Stand by here, folks.